around you, right? Comes from the world around you.
Comes from the force that holds particles together.
If you read the works of Dr. Aspen from England on zero-point energy, if you have not, I would advise you to do that, because he has developed this whole field in a very plausible and wonderful way, going back to Arthur Eddington, who was came from Trinity College in England, and he was probably the leading scientist prior to Einstein. And you can trace zero-point energy probably to him. So let's go from there.
Okay.
But anyhow, recently we are investigating two machines now that I think could possibly be overunity. What do you think of that?
I think there's 1,000 ways there, and if you found two of them, thank God.
Most people say that's impossible. That, there's no such thing as over energy. But that's not true.
That's not true. No, Tesla, he did a lot, and they used an energy weapon like that on the World Trade Centers. That's tremendously, tremendously powerful.
What's the World Trade Center got to do with it?
The plane-shaped holes that were made by a beam weapon, neutron bomb, all of that. It was cold fusion.
No.
I think I can prove that.
Now, wait a minute. We're going off into too many different subjects.
Okay.
Cold fusion, you can get into focus fusion, but that's not zero-point energy. Let's stick to zero-point energy, which is the energy from around you. Fusion has to do with the fusion of molecules, the release of energy.
Yeah. Without heat is cold fusion.
Well, it gives off energy.
And to me, that's a zero-point effect. It happens because I know that the official story of what zero-point means is the absolute zero of helium or hydrogen or something.
No, zero-point energy is when you go down to temperatures approaching zero, which you will never obtain. But when you're close enough, you find that the particles in the vacuum don't seem to lose their energy. Now, let's not be too theoretical. That's an observation. You can't get to 0 point exactly, but you can get pretty close. And the energy of the particles, which are measured, don't seem to lose anything. So that's why they call it 0 point energy.
Well, I call it zero from the more.
Are you a physicist?
No, I'm a thinker person.
What is your background?
Like textile restoration.
You're what?
Textile restoration. Yep, I learned to let.
I'm a chemical engineer.
Oh, cool.
We're on the same ground. But let's not divert too much from the subject. The subject is, how do you create energy that we know is there? Mm-hmm. People, virtually every physicist will agree that the vacuum is not a vacuum, that it's full of very live particles.
Oh, yeah, that it's not a vacuum at all. No,
yeah.
That's...
And our job is to retrieve the energy in a form that we can find useful. That's our job.
Cool.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So now, there are machines around that we are working on now that I think do that.
Yeah, but I think that you're missing on the theory end of it, and kind of, it's by experimentation, like
do you
like
know Dr. Aspen, by any chance, who is in English? He is a physicist, came out of Trinity College in Cambridge.
Uh-huh.
and he goes back to Arthur Eddington, who had just preceded Einstein. And Einstein went in one direction, and Aspeth went in another direction. He has written several books on physics without Einstein. And if you haven't read those, I would
love to.
You should read them. He has not hundreds, but he has dozens of papers. And can you believe it? They cannot be published in a peer-reviewed article in an established physical journal, even though he's a man 82 years old and he's been doing this all his life.
Yep. Gives up too much that they don't want known. Yep.
Exactly.
So who was they?
Well, conventional goes along the line, and I'm not opposed to that, because I think people should work on laws that have been established. But every now and then you come into a situation where you have something that experimentally happens that you can't explain. Now that's where you have to open your mind and say, what could be happening here? Now, whether it's cold fusion, I know about focus. Are you familiar with focus fusion?
Not really.
That's the creation of energy by you get up, instead of to hundreds of millions of degrees, you get up to billions of degrees, and you convert boron. You react it with hydrogen, and you get off energy.
Does this happen instantaneously and without traditional heat?
It absolutely. It's a field.
A room temperature kind of process.
No, it's not room temperature. It's 1 billion degrees, but it happens in a little tiny piece of equipment that you could pick up yourself.
Oh, well, this happened in open air, and there weren't that much pieces to pick up.
Now, how do you derive energy from your cold fusion process?
The energy is from the aether, AETHER, and
yeah.
what this is faster than light. It's a fundamental solid, but faster than light.
And who is the gentleman that proposes this?
Poincaré, Poincare, with I don't even know how to pronounce him.
Does he have books on the subject?
You did, but I had to do my own work. But
how can you do your own work if you're not a physicist?
There are fundamentals that are more fundamental than that, and I was working at a different level, and I was younger and smarter then. But I improved.
Inspired by what?
Can I say something, John, at this point? It seems as though Albert Einstein was so worshipped as a god that the feeling or the implication is that nobody can figure this out because he's such a genius.
Exactly.
So I think in many ways, even if people aren't physicists and they're not in peer reviews, doesn't mean that they're necessarily incapable of following something, particularly if they're led by somebody like yourself who is a scientist and who's open to expressing to regular people.
Well, true, but you have to have some degree of discipline. There has to be some. Dr. Aspden, for instance, got his PhD at Trinity College in Cambridge, which is the same. That's where most of the physicists in England originated. So he has a lot of credentials, and he can't even be published because he wanders off the course and disagrees with Einstein. But that doesn't open the door to people that have ideas that they have to be subject to experimental verification.
And mine were. We found lots of experimental verifications. I can look up. I've got some of my old stuff still that would really appreciate some validation from somebody out there.
But
I'm serious. I'm so serious. I'm so serious.
Who did the experiments?
It's all thought experiments and having reactions that are passed off as artifact as normal.
Who did these?
I don't know. I can't remember that far. I'm talking about stuff that I did in my college days. But I'd find what I have. I'd love to you. Well, please, 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 please. It's like this is some kind of a miracle day, a chance to get somebody to see
Physics is not
this.
miracle. Physics is what happens.
Yeah, and what happens is miracle. Every
true.
breath is miracle.
But you have to repeat it.
Oh yeah, it's a repeated miracle. That's what's so shocking about it.
And, no, but I don't mean to be disrespectful, but tell me how you go about this.
How one goes about what? Any reverse spiral is going to attract this energy from the aether. Exactly how it's done is with Maxwell's constant, Maxwell's scalar.
Are you familiar with Clark Maxwell's equations?
As much as I can be as a novice human
You've looked at
fan of mathematics.
You have looked at them.
Oh yeah.
I see. Okay.
And I'm saying that they were bollocksed and that they were deballed when they took away the scalar variable and the use of quaternion mathematics, which they had earlier than that taken the edge off that too, because that began as the mathematics of Archimedes.
Now tell me something. Are you a mathematician?
I am a fan, and I've lived lots of lives, and in one of them I must have been a mathematician, because it's just the center of my emotionalness.
Forget emotions. Forget emotions.
Yeah.
How did you get interested in this? What?
John, can I just step in at this point? I think some people have experiences that are a little bit out of the ordinary of the regular society's social consensus of what is acceptable. And they start to search on their own because I think sometimes they find themselves frustrated or not fulfilled in the regular institutions.
Well, hippie school, we didn't have, we had professors. I mean, they had the qualifications and all of normal, real professors, but we...
Where was this?
It was Thomas Jefferson College in Allendale, Michigan, back in the times when they thought that it would ruin education if you didn't have grades and hierarchies.
But how did you get interested in the physical aspects of energy?
Oh God, I can't even tell you how far back, how much. It was a crossing point between Ayn Rand, which is I was studying the.
Ayn Rand, God forget her.
Yeah, and I know, and a crossing point with Zen and the art of motorcycle maintenance. Was what put me into this position that I found things. I improved on Aristotle, at least I think I did, but since I've been isolated and not had anybody to talk to about it my whole life, I don't know what I did or not. You know?
But now, do you do any experimental work? Do you have any machines that create energy out of the vacuum?
No, all I have is my own end of it.
Do you know people that do that?
Not I know them online, but it isn't like I've had experiments for anybody to do.
Is valid or not?
Well, of course it's valid.
No. But what I think he's saying, John, when I interviewed him about zero-point energy, I was expecting an abstract discussion. But from the very beginning, John has always been very practical, and he said it's devices.
Yeah.
Well,
devices. Do you have any news on that, John, about people who have done this practically?
Yes, we have two devices which we're now looking at that may well be overunity.
Okay, what's that mean?
Overunity means you create more energy than you take in.
So, are these devices ready to fuel along my little apartment here in Gramercy Park and get off the grid?
Oh, and not quite at the moment because we haven't confirmed this, but I was going to call you about this, and I've gotten some information since I last talked to you, and I'm working with two guys right now that have machines that seem, I will say, apparent, because all of this is subject to confirmation, but apparently they have devices that can put out more energy than what they consume. And where does that energy come? It comes from all around us. The vacuum, ethereal, zero-point energy, call it what you like.
So when can we get some confirmation?
It's mathematically approachable.
No. Forget mathematics. This has nothing to do with mathematics. This has to do with machines. And that's the bottom line. If you could find a practical generator that puts out more energy than it takes in, it will change the world.
Oh, it sure will.
And I think we're moving in on that.
So what's the next step, John?
Verification.
And when will that happen?
Well, Paula, I was going to talk to you about this. It's going to take a little time, but we have a plan to do that.
Do you want to talk about this privately, or you don't want to? Because I am making a recording of this.
The problem is the people that are going to verify the plan are doing it. These are things that organized physics thinks are impossible. Now, who is the lady I was talking to? You will agree that...
Rosalee.
Yeah.
Rosalee.
Okay.
Rosalee, organized physics would say, you and I are crazy.
Oh, yeah. But that's because they're running a scam, and they...
But you have to prove they're running a scam. You can't say that. You have to say how they're running a scam and why it's wrong.
Okay. And to do that, I point at Edna Cintron and I say, watch her wave. Watch the lack of stuff that's around her.
He doesn't know who Edna Cintron is, and I don't know if we really want to. Do you really want to go there? He's not into conspiracies or anything. I would just let John run with what he knows here.
Oh, I'm all for him running what he knows.
This has nothing to do with the CIA little man looking at you.
Oh, no.
And about to put you in jail. Anybody that's paranoid about this, I dismiss. This has nothing to do with paranoia. This has to do with down-to-earth physics. When somebody comes with a machine and says the output for that machine is greater than what goes in, I want to hear about it. And that's what we're examining.
So examine away. What's our next step? What can I do? How can I notify? I get thousands of hits a day, John.
Paula, you can't do anything because verification would turn this whole thing upside down, really. Verification would mean that modern physics is fractured.
Fractured? That's a huge term, John.
Well, it is.
It is because most modern physicists, if you gave them this machine and showed them the output, they'd say that is a fraud or it's impossible.
It's perp-driven. Professor Jones was a cover-up of free energy his entire career.
He doesn't know anything about this, Rosalee. I really don't want to go there. I want to...
Jones.
Yeah, I just want to... What I'm trying to do, John, with my show and with my viewers is see if I can empower the average viewer on the internet to start thinking for themselves, to figure things out.
Now, let's go back to Rosalee. Rosalee, how would you approach this problem? How are you going to convince people that energy from the vacuum, which is acknowledged, most physicists will say, yes, it's there, but we can't recover it for certain reasons. And one of the reasons is your friend Clark Maxwell. His theory or his equations will tell you that this is impossible. But it's not impossible. His theories are going to have to be
already been bollocksed and changed. Well, we'd like to unbollox it and change it back, and that would bring an opening for a mathematical understanding of overunity.
Okay, now tell me how that has happened.
How it has been changed?
Yes. Tell me how Clerk-Maxwell's equations have been challenged or modified or changed.
Well, they took them from 20 equations down to 8, just kind of threw out the rest.
Well, that's true. Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. And all of the stuff that gave us Tesla's math was in those ones that they threw out and told us that they were simplifying things, wink, wink, and they just simplified all of Tesla's math into nowhere land. But the secret ones, they still know it, they still use it, and they're using it for the domination of mankind.
No, but now where does this leave you, Rosalee? How are you gonna produce free energy?
Not personally, but if I can lead someone in the right direction so that they can, sure that's what I'm aiming at.
What is the road you would take?
A recognition of the great neutral force.
I don't know that it's neutral.
No, it's very energetic, but that's what there is instead of a vacuum. It's
everyone will agree to that.
It's its own additive inverse. It's
Rosalee, everyone will agree to that. But
cool.
But the practical problem is, how do you derive energy that mankind can use?
Any double helix will do the job.
A double helix?
Yeah, revolving against itself. Any can't help but create some...
Is this a machine you have thought about?
It could be.
It could be. Well, what is it?
It's an idea.
No, but ideas are fun. I agree with that. I'm not disputing what you say. But you see, I'm a more pragmatic type. I'm 82 years old. I don't have long to live. I can deal with ideas up to a point, but we're close to producing something.
Cool.
Now, when it's produced, we'll engage you into the ideas as why it's been produced. Now, Aspen, Paula, you should send Rosalee those books by Dr. Aspen, and he will give you a pretty clear idea of why this might happen.
No, I'll definitely photocopy the papers that you sent me, and I'll send them to Rosalee.
Section number 27. And that's a very succinct understanding of why we could probably get free energy out of the vacuum. And this guy is not, he is a down-to-earth, and he can't even be published, Rosalee. That's what really annoys me. People, because he disagrees with Einstein, he can't get peer review publication.
Right. Einstein was a plagiarist. He stole parts of different mathematicians who understood and believed in, although I don't like that term, the aether. They were using it mathematically. They were called universalists back then. And then Einstein just sort of cherry-picked their work and went off on a PR campaign.
And theory is fun. Theory leads to experimentation, and experimentation leads to something concrete that you can use. Now, it's gone further than experience, because I'll bet you, if you looked around the United States, there are half a dozen or more experimenters that are working on machines, and we have two of them, I think, that work.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's more than half a dozen. I think there's
a lot
more than that, I would say.
Yeah, I would too.
Now, I'll tell you what the basis for these are. One guy found this was a commercial product, which was a magnetic clutch. And he was alert enough to, like not a clutch, a clamp. If you're a carpenter, you have a clamp that clamps two boards together. Well, this company came up with a magnetic clamp that clamped two boards together, and this guy was interested, so he made some measurements on this particular product, and he found out that the energy to produce the field, to produce the force that clamped the jaws of the clamp together was far less than the force that was generated by the clamp itself. So I said, So he goes off and he converts that into a generator. And he sent me, this guy has $600,000 in debt. He sent me the data that he had obtained from this generator. And it turns out that the generator he's come up with will turn out about 8 times what you put into it. Now, where does that energy come from? Just what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't. Cold fusion, let me tell you another example. Another guy has a battery charger, and it's an industrial product. And what it does is recharge all batteries. Now, these are not all just car batteries. These are different kinds of batteries. But it turns out that the charger that he has developed will recharge a battery at a very low power input. And lo and behold, when he has recharged the battery will then turn around and put out several times the charge that's been put into it. So now let me tell you, you got to ask, well, where in the world does that energy come from? It comes from the vacuum. These are things that are going on right now. Now you can talk about cold fusion. One of the fields you should look at is focus fusion. Now that is I sent some papers on that to Paula, and that's kind of different. That's an offshoot. That really isn't completely germane to what we're talking about. But there are many different ways that the energy from the vacuum, I think, will emerge. It's not just one way of doing it. And Aspen there was a guy in 1871 that had a patent which showed, he had 2 concentric capacitors that resonated between each other.
That would work.
And I have his name, and I've got it in my file, and I can't think of it at the moment.
He was from Mansfield, Ohio, because I remember reading that McFarland or something.
McFarland, that was the guy.
Yeah, but you said that nobody could make the device.
Well, because experimentally, these things are not easy to make. You're talking about an old experiment. I spent a fortune in the shrimp business. We thought we had a perfect lock on the shrimp business, and it took us 14 years and $50 million to perfect it, because what we got was not what it was purported to be. All the major pieces were missing, so we had to supply them, and that was not an easy thing to do. And that might be what happens here. I'm not saying what we're talking about is easy. It probably won't be, and there'll be a lot of missteps in between.
And stolen at the last minute.
Well, now look, if you're going to go paranoid on me, I disappear, because I'm an optimist. I grew up as a new product development manager. I was very good at that. Forget all the people that are going to steal it. Listen, there are a lot of terrible people in this world, and I'll tell you one thing. If this thing ever breaks, all the bastards in this world are going to appear, and the originators of these ideas, however good they are, will probably wind up with nothing.
Oh, but John, that's not very optimistic of you, is it?
Oh, I'm just telling you what's going to happen.
Being realistic.
Because there are 100 different ways you can do this. It's not just the battery charger. It's not just the guy that we're talking about that's created the generator. He thinks he's gone $600,000 in debt. He thinks he's going to get money out of it. He'll probably never get out of debt. I never told him that. And there are people here in Panama City. I know a guy that made an enormous fortune in real estate that wants to get into this. He'll probably just, whatever he made in real estate, he'll probably lose on this particular venture. But free energy will emerge, independent of the people that are the originators. Free energy will emerge. Society will benefit. Society will benefit because it's there. It's there for the asking, and it'll emerge in dozens of different forms. Cold energy may be one of them. I'm not saying that. I don't mean to throw up.
Knowing the theory behind it has to be good and has to be part of that birthing process, don't you think?
Well, it could be. I can't get into that because I haven't seen that machine yet. you know, the two guys that
came
up with that.
It's easier to stay hooked to what you know.
I can't think of who they were, but they were vilified for even suggesting it. But they might have been something.
Fleischman and Pons.
Best Fleischman and Pons. You're right. Okay. Maybe that will work. That might be another form of it. But they're not. It's multifaceted beast. They're all. They're really. The bottom line is, free energy is there for the asking. However, it's going to be acquired by whatever route, and mankind will benefit. Before you know it, everyone will be jumping in different directions. Now, who the hell makes a fortune out of this? I won't even attempt to guess. I don't think I will. But we have two aspects of this, just two little aspects that demonstrate that free energy is there. That's what I'm interested in. Asbeth is an old man like I am. I'm 82 years old. All he wants to know is that his life has not been wasted developing a complete theory on how this thing should work. And Rosalee, do yourself a favor. Get with Paula and read his works. He has written dozens of books on this subject. And the guy is a fabulous physicist. He came out of Trinity College. He was an offshoot of Arthur Eddington, who really was the leading physicist in the world before Einstein. Einstein went in one direction, and Eddington was not happy about the direction he went into. So go back to what happened at the end of the 19th century and take off from there, and forget Einstein for a minute, and you will arrive at free energy.
Yeah. That was Poland.
By whatever route you take.
In Poincaré, that was, and more names I'm not remembering. Yeah, it was like there was a nest of these mathematicians back then who...
Well, in mathematics is a tool. Mathematics is a great tool, but all it does in a lot of places, how much mathematics do you think people like Tesla or who was the guy that invented the electric light bulb? I can't even think of his name now.
Edison.
Keeley.
Edison was a great businessman and a great putter around and a great experimenter, but I doubt if he even had a college education.
Right.
He just experimented. And mathematics played virtually no role in his education. And Tesla was he just intuitively walked in the laboratory and observed things. And mathematics is sort of an afterthought. It sort of puts everything together after the accomplishments have been in hand, you know.
I don't think that was always the case.
Because mathematics is a launching board for speculation, but it's not nature. Mathematics is not
think you'll understand, Rosalee, a little more when I send you these papers. It has to do with the Big Bang and the black holes as being a lot of massive cop-outs.
Mathematics is not nature. That's a wonderful quote.
It isn't. Even though Aristotle thought it was part of nature, it's not. Mathematics is a poor, pathetic attempt to duplicate nature and to expand speculative on what you find from mathematics is like religion. I mean, you can speculate all you like, and it feels good, but is it nature?
Say,
Okay,
John,
I've gone on too long.
No, John, I want to ask you with Aspden, are you still in correspondence with him? Because I wrote him a letter and I never got an answer. He's not online. He has a website.
I know. I just wrote to him today.
Okay. Now, what I also wondered was he was not only a physicist from Trinity College, which was sort of the home of, the cradle of physics today, but he also worked in the patent office, right?
IBM, right.
Now, why did he not exert himself to do that patent of 1871 from Mansfield in Ohio?
Well, because Aspden is not an experimenter; he's a theoretician.
Okay.
That is a terrible link. You know, some guys tinker around in the laboratory and find things out, and then other guys come by and try to theorize as to what they've done. Without the tinkerers, you have nothing, because you don't know really what the hell goes on.
Right.
The tinkerers are the leaders. They may be stupid in a sense, but they're inquisitive, and they do things, and they find things that are alert enough to realize that what they found doesn't sort of fit a pattern that they can understand, and then the theoreticians follow in behind, and they develop all these theories, and from there they speculate on other things, and that's where modern physics is today.
So what you're saying, John, is that the tinkerers are kind of unimpeded by mathematical expectations or limitations?
Or almost any. So I'm not knocking the tinkerers, because I think, look at the two machines that we're working on. One is from a guy named Berdini. He sells air conditioning equipment out in Denver someplace. But he has he found this battery charger, and God knows how he found it, the same way that McFarlane did, that lo and behold, and he sells it. I bought one the other day for $200, and Shelvin has been reviving a battery, and lo and behold, the dead battery he revived now puts out more than what he puts in it.
Wow.
Think of that.
No, I can hardly wait to get one of them in the apartment and start getting off the grid. That's what I'm waiting for.
Now, part of the problem is that nobody realizes that this is going on. I'm sure there are other places where this is going on too, and people have ignored it. Now, can you believe that in this modern day and age?
Oh, we can believe that very easily, John. We deal with a lot of things that the media is ignoring. That's why I'm getting so many hits on the internet.
No, well, just people ignore it. They think, well, and what happens is a major company will come in and there'll be a development that appears before them, and so they bring in that physicist. He says, something to it because it can't be true. So they disband the whole idea, you know. But that can only go on so long. One of these days, and this is what, now I'm an old man, I'm not going to put any money in this, but there are people here, even in Panama City. I know a guy, when I started the shrimp farm in 72, Julie and I had a fair amount of money, and we, just Rosalee, to give you some idea, I'm one of the guys that started the shrimp industry. In fact, I like to think that if it hadn't been for me, there wouldn't be any farm shrimp industry, which today is a $15 billion a year business, and you can buy shrimp at Sam's. Have you been to Sam's and bought shrimp, Rosalie?
Yeah.
Okay. You realize when I started, shrimp was in a fish dealer. You couldn't buy one in a you couldn't buy one in a market. You couldn't buy them anywhere because the total production of shrimp in 1972 worldwide was 1 billion pounds. Now it's about 6 billion pounds, and ocean-caught shrimp have decreased from 1 billion pounds to about 200 million. It's killed the natural conduction of shrimp, but it has expanded shrimp farming unbelievably. And now you can buy shrimp. Now, do you know how much money went into that particular development?
Oh, tremendous.
In 72, and I raised all the money. In 1972, I raised $17.2 million. Now, what would that be today? 50? 60?
Yeah.
Or every dollar was lost. Every single dollar was lost by the original investors. And I've given talks to the original investors, and they all think it was a great idea still. They don't send me letter bonds because the idea was right. We solved the problems. We got it going, and the ultimate objective was created. Now, the same problem you're addressing right now, you're addressing a problem where people are not really sure that this is true. The physicists will agree that there is a zero-point energy because you can measure that. You know, our friend Hal Puthoff will measure that. Have you told Rosalee about Hal Puthoff? And he's an established scientist with a research budget of $2.5 million a year. But he doesn't do any practical work. Doesn't do any practical work. And when some guy comes to him with a machine, I'm not sure whether he really is interested in saying this thing is going to work or not. I'm sort of questioning whether he's on the same frequency I am. All I care about is how the machine works.
$2.5 million budget.
He's got $2.5 million a year in research money.
Yeah.
He has a research operation in Austin, Texas, and that's how much he spends each year on. And he publishes. He's in every journal you can imagine, but he just nicks away at the fringes of this. He doesn't get in to the real down and dirty of getting the goddamn thing started, you know, of picking up these little guys that have here and there have come up with something that's unusual and put it together and make the damn thing work. Now, you're talking to a guy that's been through this, and I'm hard-betting, perhaps, but I'm 82. I still have some vitality, and by God, when I die, I'm going to get this thing off the ground.
Oh, so be it, John. I feel that energy. Why do you think Hal Puthoff is not getting on the stick?
Well, one, he has too many interests. You know, zero-point energy is sort of off in the background somewhere. He looks on it as an intellectual challenge. I don't look at it that way at all. I look at it as being something that's right around the corner, that's just so close to you that you can feel it, and I want to get it done. You know, I want to get whoever is going to do it, and I don't care who does it or how they do it. And Rosalee, cold fusion might be the answer. Who knows? I haven't found one yet in cold fusion that makes any particular sense to me, but maybe they will. I don't close my mind to that. Maybe that would work. I don't rule that out. But I tell you, the ones that does seem to work are in the electronics field, and they seem to be able to create a field from the vacuum that will generate energy, or that you can pull energy in from the vacuum and push it out the other side and make it work for us. And that's what we're working on.
Say, John, how do you deal with people who are kind of distracting? For example, I have now Alan posted the interview done with Hal Puthoff into little sections. And at one time, because I've listened to that interview many times, Hal Puthoff says that the physics doesn't say we can do it, but we know there's spaceships out there and we know they're doing it, so it must be able to be done. I thought that was a crazy statement, because when I looked at Aspden's work, the physics does say you can do it. So
That's the problem. But Aspden, you see, is not published in any peer-reviewed journals. People won't even touch him. They think he's a crazy old man.
Well, but that's so strange, because what Hal Puthoff was saying, it's kind of sounded wacky. He said the spaceships are doing it. And that sounds kind of discrediting.
Hal Puthoff is an anomaly to me. I've written to him recently. I wrote to him in October and asked him to come here. I don't know whether, and I told him that we had some people here that had some machines that might work, and that might really put him off. He may not want that. I wrote to him about a month ago, asking him back, telling him we would pay his trip. He could stay at my house. I know him. He's a very nice guy. He's been in this house.
I know.
Well, you were here.
No, actually, I was in India, but I heard all about it, and it was very exciting. And Molly was just talking about Hal Puthoff yesterday.
As long as you talk to Hal Puthoff and put him front and center, and don't press him too hard, and don't ask him too many practical questions, he's a wonderful guy. But when it comes down to the down and dirty, or when it's going to be done, and how about these things that are being done now, he really backs off. And that bothers me. And I don't know if he's going to come back, because when I wrote to him, I said, Hal, we would love to hear your new, whatever you have to say about zero-point energy. We want to know your recent thoughts on this. And we have some people here, or we have different people here that have created machines, and we would like to have your comment on whether you think this is valid or not. And see, I heard not a word from him.
Well, maybe you challenged him too much. Maybe he's kind of beholden to an institution that's really set up to protect the status quo.
Well, I don't know. I hate to get into the realm of, some people are paranoid. They say, well, the CIA is going to shoot you down, or some big company is going to shoot you down, or somebody else. I'm too stupid to believe that. I think if some little guy came up with a machine and we could produce it, I'll get some friends of mine from Panama City. God damn it, if we have to put up several $1 million, we'll do it. And get one of those machines to work and put them out on the market. Let them come on. I know all kinds of lawyers in New York that would love to protect you from whoever's going to try to shoot you down.
Yeah, but John, by the same token, what I really paid attention to was this guy who's $600,000 in debt.
Right.
And you seem to indicate the quality of heart now that's needed to move forward, the type of backbone, the type of courage, is not going to be motivated by profit. But
this guy is an idealist, I agree. And I told him, I said, look, I did this once. I can't come up with that kind of money again, but I can find some people that probably will. And I don't need to have anything of it. I'm not looking for money, and frankly, if I encourage anybody into this field, I don't think they're going to make a lot of money either, because as soon as this thing gets out in the open business sphere, it's going to be a rat race. The big companies will come in and first of all, there's no one product. See, you could probably develop a dozen products that would draw energy from the vacuum. It's just not the magnetic form that we were talking about, the clamp. It's not the generator. It could be. I can only think that there are many other ways you can do it. And this guy Biggio, I haven't sent you these papers yet, have I? I was about to do that.
No.
He will agree. This is going to be a difficult business venture for any innovator, because the patent aspect of this is very murky. I don't think you're going to protect any of these inventions as unique, because there's so many different ways you can do it. A patent might protect the way you're going to do it, but it wouldn't prevent somebody else from developing another way that would bypass your patent. So
I think I have the answer to that, because I remember reading Aspen's letter to you, and he said he described this patent problem,
right.
but he said he had enough faith in human brain power that they would overcome it. And I'm going to see if
how that's going to happen.
Well, I think it's binary economics. I'm going to send you a book about a group of people who have been working, and you've got to tackle the whole copyright problem. That's the problem. The patent problem itself is the problem.
You're going to have a lot of different... The first problem you're going to have is that most people are not... They even though it's going to be right in front of them, before they wake up, you're going to have a marketing problem. You could be out there with a generator and sell the generator cheek to jowl with some guy from Japan, and your generator doesn't require any gasoline and his does, and that is going to take a while before people wake up as to what the hell's happening.
Right.
They're going to say, well, that's a wonderful thing. It's cheaper, it's better, but they just can't translate that this is a complete shift in the energy picture, and that will take that's going to be like an earthquake when it happens, because it will completely shift the way people think about energy.
Well, that's what I call a paradigm shift. What do you think, Rosalee?
That's the paradigm shift that we're looking for, and yeah. And I think I got proof that they've got such a thing and that they're using this energy, and if they're using it for what they're using it for, we should be using it for what we're using it for.
Yeah. And Rosalee, do you know anybody that's doing this now?
Somebody did.
There's supposed to be a company, and I've forgotten, I think it's in Finland, that operates a community that's completely self-sufficient on zero-point energy, and no one seems to be interested. Now, I've read that, but I don't have any way of checking that. And the problem with this field is that there are a lot of charlatans abroad. They say this and that, but
Right.
what they say is not really what is true. I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
you have to have a machine that when you put it out, it's going to work. It can't be just hearsay or just what somebody else says, oh, they're doing this or they're doing that. It's got to be something that's here and now, and when you get the machine, lo and behold, it works. And it should. It absolutely should. There's no reason why it should not. So that's what we're working on.
Oh, John, it's so nice to talk to you about this. I mean, it's given me a lot of ideas, and what I'm going to do is, would you like to be on Harold Channer's show?
I don't have anything to... Listen, I do not do any experimental work. I'm interested in this field because I've worked on it for 2 or 3 years. And I started off with Hal Puthoff, who's over in the cloud someplace. And then I started working with getting books from various sources and people that made claims here and there. And then all of a sudden, out of the woodwork, start to appear these inventors with machines. Now, those are the guys that in. Forget
Right.
the theory, forget all the people that have all these ideas. I want the guys with the machines that we can examine and we can find out if they are right or wrong. And I will send you, Paula, the output of this particular machine with the guy's name, and I had a call in for you the other day because I just got these numbers the other day, and I wrote to Abstin today,
I mean, John, I'm so convinced that the most important part of our society that we need to unite are the older people and the younger people, because the younger people have the enthusiasm, but if they haven't been informed, because information has been sort of directed, like if you don't have peer review for some of the most brilliant people, those poor children, the youth are being handicapped.
Exactly. Well, it's
because
we have a bureaucracy in the physics department. Unfortunately, we've treated Einstein as a god, and he's a brilliant man, but he's not a god. There are other ways of thinking of things. And
right.
It's physics is really, we're spending all this money in Bern, Switzerland on the superconductor super collider in the hopes that we will arrive at the Higgs constant, which will give us a universal way of looking at things, resolving all known physical forces. But without the force of consciousness, it sort of loses its appeal to me, because consciousness is a extremely important force, although it's not a physical force. And if it eliminates consciousness, I'm out of there. So I can understand spending a certain amount of thought, a lot of thought in terms of trying to relate all the forces of this earth. But I'm basically a practical man, and I can see zero-point energy is so close to us, and it's absolutely what we need. Don't get me started, Rosalee, on the CO2 in the atmosphere. That is so much hot air. It has CO2 in the atmosphere. If you sit down and think about it, it has little to do with the weather. Now, it might be a factor in the weather somewhere off in the future, but to substitute, I used to work down at Oak Ridge, and to substitute those uranium plants, which do not create CO2, for a coal plant, which does, is the most drastic, stupid decision. Would you rather hand your grandchildren strontium-90 iodine 60 or a whiff of CO2? Come on.
I'd rather
uranium plants are one of the most dangerous things we can build. I know all about them. I was at Hanford. I was at Paducah, Kentucky. I was at Oak Ridge. Don't tell me about all that stuff that they make.
Say, listen, John, we only have a couple minutes left to get this on the tape. Along the lines of the global warming fraud, do you want me to follow up when you come to Dayton to see if I can get somebody from the Bird Polar Research Center?
No, forget global warming. The way to create... let's forget global warming for a moment. If you can bring in zero-point energy, people will quickly drop global warming. It will be a non-topic.
Okay, thanks. That's a lot less work for me to do, because everybody was passing the buck up to Lonnie Thompson, and I didn't think I could get him.
Yeah, global warming is a fiction, really. It probably has some impact on the weather, but your great-grandchildren, we'll all be long gone before that ever has any impact on what we do, and it has nothing to do with anything. But creating uranium plants is a disaster. That is a real disaster. We should absolutely outlaw the mining of uranium, in my opinion.
Wow.
Now, see, zero-point energy, you're operating on the other end of the scale. The products of zero-point energy are benign. There are no bad effects of zero-point energy. Zero-point energy is a gift. It's a gift.
Wow.
Uranium is a horrible, horrible departure from rationality. When you split uranium, you get things that are fantastically radioactive for 10,000 years, and you can't get rid of them. So why the hell are we doing that?
Right.
It's because of the lack of CO2. CO2 didn't have anything to do with anything anyhow. So what kind of decision is that? That is a stupid... we make some irrational decisions. So there's a driving force to get zero-point energy, to get rid of uranium, to get rid of CO, to get rid of coal. Coal burning is bad from a pollution standpoint. I'm not talking about the terrible destruction of resources.
But we can fix that more easily than cleaning up strontium-90 and iodine-60.
Oh, God. I mean, zero-point energy is what we should be zeroing in on. We should spend most of our waking hours trying to bring that to bear. That's why I'm interested. I don't care if I get anything out of it. I live a very comfortable life, have a lovely house, a lovely wife, enough money to enjoy myself. I smoke cigars, drink too much whiskey, chase girls. I have a great time. I don't want any more money. I just want to see zero-point energy succeed.
Okay, great, John. And I'm going to just put the word out to...
I don't care how we do it. I don't care what form it comes in. And it probably will come in a multiplicity of forms. The two I've mentioned are just a couple.
Well,
maybe, Rosalee, conceivably, coal fusion will be part of that. Although coal fusion brings into it now radiation, and zero-point energy really doesn't. So in that sense, I'd like to stick with zero-point energy because I think it's already there. Radiation doesn't really play a part at all. Even coal fusion puts out stuff. It's certainly a lot better than uranium. I'm not talking to that. And focus fusion is in the same category. If you've looked at that, that's another one that people have worked on for a long time. And that's a lot better than. And hot fusion is 50 years away. That thing is so far away and so ridiculous. Why work on it? It's so expensive. It just makes no sense.